Hi, I'm Jimmy Aluria with Victory Team Building Group, and today I want to talk to you about the difference between markup and margin. These are two terms that in our industry, in the auto repair industry, they're often confused by owners, managers, and service advisors and parts managers. And each of those positions really need to understand the difference of markup versus margin, because if I'm talking about 50% markup and the owner's talking about 50% margin, we're talking about two totally different numbers. And so it's important that everybody in the shop understands the difference between what these numbers are. Luckily for us, our shop management softwares have made it real easy, and I'll actually show you a couple pictures from our software just for examples, so that you don't have to think too hard about these. But it is important to understand the difference of what they mean, what the words mean. So we're going to go through those examples here. Okay, so margin versus markup. Now, the first one I wanted to define is the definition of markup, because these aren't the same. Okay, markup is defined as an amount added to the cost price of an article to set the selling price. Okay, so it's what's added to the cost to set the selling price. So for example, we have a $100 part cost. Okay, we bought something for $100. If we have a 50% markup, okay, not margin, markup, we would take that cost and multiply it by 1.5. And I'll show you that in a second here, okay? But 50% markup, okay, is $50. We're taking 50% of 100, that's $50. So we're going to mark it up by $50. Now the way you get to that is you take 100 times 1.5, and that gives you your sale price of $150. Okay, so we have $100 part cost at a 50% markup. That's $50. $50 marking it up $50. The way we get to that is 100 times 1.5, and that gives us $150. Okay, so we have our $100 cost plus our $50 profit, and that gives us $150, or your cost times 1.5. Okay, so that is a 50% markup. Now, so we take this same exact example. It's the same numbers I just gave you. You have a $100 part, 50% markup, 100 times 1.5. We have a $100 cost, our $50 markup. Okay, it's a $50 markup. Okay, because it could be a percentage or a dollar amount. We're marking it up $50. Okay, so these terms in that way are interchangeable. Okay, but if we're talking about percentages, I'll show you this in a second. The way you get to that number is not what most people think. All right, so you have $100 cost, $50 markup, $150. Now, this came from our shop management software. I just made an example here. These aren't markup matrices that I use on a standard basis, but I wanted to show an example here of what that actually breaks down to as far as profit margin. Okay, so if we take this example here, you can see that if I want to do a 50% markup, okay, 50% markup, we're going to multiply the cost by 1.5. And this is what your parts markup matrix is doing. So if you want a 50% markup, it's going to take that cost of that part, that $100 right there, and it's going to multiply it by 1.5 to give you your sale price. That's how much it's going to cost the customer. Okay. But if you'll notice here, a 50% markup is only a 33.33% gross profit. And this is where these numbers get confused. As you can see, a 50% markup is a lot different than a 33% margin. Okay? And the reason why I'm defining this is because we get clients, and I've heard shop owners, service advisors, people get these two terms confused, and it's huge money, because if I'm saying 50% markup, all right, and I'm the service advisor, and the owner's saying, I want you to work on getting at least 50% margin, that person doesn't understand the difference, and you're going to be losing out on the big money. Okay? So let's move on here. Now let's talk about margin. All right? Now margin is defined as the percentage of sale that a business retains after all expenses have been deducted. The key word here is percentage. When you talk about gross profit margin, like we hear that often in our industry, the gross profit margin, when you insert the word margin, that is a percentage. If you're talking about gross profit, that's usually just dollars. Okay, but if you insert the word margin, you're talking about a percentage per the definition. Okay, so here we go. We have a $100 part cost, and we'll use the same example. Okay, I'm going to show you an example here of what that means is percentage-wise. So $100 part cost, 50% markup. All right, as we said, it's the cost times 1.5 gives us $150. Okay, so $100 cost plus $50 profit. Okay, we have the $100 cost and we have $150 sale, so we have $50 profit. That's a $150 sale. Okay. So the way you get to profit margin, okay, what it is it's the percentage of the sale that a business retains after all expenses have been deducted. Okay, so in this example, we're just talking about gross profit because we're talking about a cost of a part or whatever. Okay, but we take the profit and we divide that by the sale. Okay? And that's how you get the percentage of gross profit margin. I have another video that you'll see, and it defines the difference between gross profit margin, net profit margin, net profit, gross profit. And you can watch that video as well if you haven't already watched that particular video in this series, okay? So we're just talking about profit margin here, all right? So the way you get to profit margin is it's profit divided by sale. So in this example of a 50% markup, we have $50 profit, $150 sale, 50 divided by 150 is 33.3% profit margin. Just like we were just looking at before. There you go. 33%. Okay. So now let's talk about how do we get to 50% gross profit? As you'll see here in our chart, to get to a 50% gross profit, we have to multiply our costs by 2. And that is going to give us 100% markup. Big difference to this. 50% markup versus 50% margin. One's 1.5 multiple, one's 2 multiple. Okay, so we take our $100 part cost and we do 100% markup. So that, as you see here, is the cost times 2. That gives us 100 times 2 equals $200. Okay, so we have a $100 cost and a $100 profit. $200 sale. Okay, so like the example I just gave you, to get to profit margin, you take profit divided by sale. That's going to give us a percentage. Remember, margin is percentage. So $100 profit divided by $200 sale is a 50% profit margin. Okay? And in my other video, I go over how this works out when you have parts and labor and tires and everything, and how important it is to understand these numbers. Okay, but this specific video is just defining the difference between margin and markup. Okay, and again, this chart came right out of my point of sale system, my shop management software, and we have a newer one now, and we had an older one. Same thing. They all have them. Okay, some of them are broken down a little bit different, but they should look similar to this. Another thing I want to say about this with regards to understanding these numbers, it can be confusing. And, like typically on parts markups, we're looking for something between, 50 and 60%, let's say. In labor, you're looking at somewhere around 65 to 70% gross profit on labor. And this can be confusing because you have there's 3 times here, 66% and 200% markup. If you look at this, here's the breakdown of it. If you have something that costs $100 and you're going to get a 50% gross profit margin on it, that means that half the money is profit. Okay, so we would take that $100 sale and double it, right? Because it's a 2-time multiple. So we take $100 times 2, that's $200. So it's easy to see that we have 100% markup. It's 100. We got $100 profit and $100 of cost. If you look up here, this is very similar to the markup that you're going to see on labor, where you have a 3 multiple. If your cost of labor is $40, $50, $60 an hour, your labor rate is going to be typically 3 times that number, whatever the cost is. But the way this breaks down is this. You've got, let's just go back to our $100 example, okay? If we want to make a 66% profit margin, okay, we're going to multiply it by 3. So 3 times 100 is 300. Well, why only a 200% markup? If it was $100, why is it only a 200% markup? Well, no, the markup is the amount that is the profit, remember. It's the amount that's the profit. Okay, so in this example, our profit margin, we have 33.3% is our cost. The $100, 33.3% is our cost. Okay, and then we have 200% markup. So that's 66% of that is profit. Okay, so it's very important to understand these numbers, and you might have to play with a calculator to figure out how this works with your multiple, your gross profit, and then your markup. But that's why that is, because your profit margin is 66%. You have $100 times 3, that's $300. 66.6% of that is $200. 33% of that is $100, which is your cost. Okay, so as a recap, markup is the amount added to the cost price of an article to set the selling price. So we do a $20 markup on our towing bills. Okay, you could figure that out as a percentage. We mark up our towing bills 10%, or you could do it as a dollar amount. Okay, it's the amount added. It could be a percentage or it could be a dollar amount. Margin is the profit margin is the percentage of the sale that a business retains after all expenses have been deducted. Okay, so I hope this helps understand the difference between what margin and markup is. And like I said, there's a series of videos on this particular topic and understanding these numbers and how important they are to ensuring that you're a profitable shop and you're making the bottom line dollars that you want to see. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.